up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. We are in the Thanksgiving holiday week, but we are going to be discussing Season 2, Episode 13, Armageddon Game. We have a jam-packed episode for you today because not only are we discussing this episode, we are discussing Mike's treasure hunt find, his TV guide interview with Avery Brooks. So that's going to be very exciting. Mike, how's it going?
I'm excited, Keith. It's a Monday morning here, but the sun is shining, even though it's no degrees. There are no degrees to be found anywhere near me. But as you mentioned, very excited because, spoiler alert, I feel like the episode quality has jumped a few notches, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
We are rebounding.
And we get some great Ciscoing this week. And as you mentioned, I found myself this TV guide over the summer, which has an interview that was in the TV guide for the week this episode aired. So I thought a great time for us to read it. And even better, you would assume, maybe not, maybe you wouldn't. I would assume that in a TV guide interview that is basically marketing for Deep Space Nine, right, Avery Brooks would receive and give quite a puff pastry of an interview.
You don't know Avery Brooks.
I don't know Avery Brooks. I mean, this was an interview. I mean, you get some tidbits. I learned a lot about him, and I learned that he has very little F's to give.
No, so Avery Brooks is a truth machine.
Yeah, I thought I was going to cut out just like a couple of questions from this interview, but I'm going to read quite a few because I think there's some cool nuggets. So I'm excited to get to that.
Awesome. I'm excited about it too. But before we do, we have to introduce to you the people we're excited about, and that is our patrons, who you can join on patreon.com/K&M. Get exciting bonus content. We're unopening toys. We're reviewing bonus episodes. We're doing AMAs. We're just doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and we're chatting with you, so do not miss an opportunity to have more of your time wasted by us with hours of extra bonus content. Mike, who's doing that at the moment?
Well, the people who are unopening toys with us, as Keith said, unboxing maybe?
Yeah, you.
Unopening would be like putting them back in the package, right? Sorry. Anyway, if you want to do that,
it's very exclusive content. We're going to be putting things back into packaging.
Yeah, anywhere on YouTube you can see people unboxing. We rebox toys, which is can only get it here. Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloud Lover 69, Jason Moe, who gave me there's a episode of the original series that Jason watches every Thanksgiving, and he said it's a Thanksgiving tradition, and he said it's one of the best original series episodes. So Keith, I think maybe if I find myself some time, I'm going to put that on the Patreons, me watching that for Jason.
Oh, good idea. I love that idea.
Yeah. You can join me if you want, or I'll just go solo. Andrew Hayes, Show Me the Toonies, Jorge Navoa, and the Mysterious Hand, Worf's Butthole, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage at Grim_Toys, Delusions at Noon. Do you know if you take a duck, shove it inside of a turkey, and then shove it up Worf's butt, you get a Ter-Worf duckin? Anyway.
Ter-Worf-En?
A Ter-Worf-En.
Ter-Worf-En.
Oh, boy.
We do not want that custom figure.
No, please. Well, I mean, we'll open anything. Let's be honest. If you send it, we shall open it.
We shall, and then we'll rebox it. Mm-hmm. We'll put it right back in the packaging.
Oh, we will shove it straight up Worf's butt at the end of the episode. We'll take it out, look at it on camera, pop it back in, baby.
Oh, well, it's much like the turducken, we took it one step too far. Okay. All right, let's talk about the Armageddon game, which aired on January 30th, 1994. I'm excited. Mike, we have a new song.
We do?
And I can't wait for you to sing it for us. And that is, of course, the collaboration of the supergroup of Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting singing All for Love.
Oh, man. No recollection of this song, but I'm sure if I reach down deep.
I think it just...
It's all love. We all have big hair. One of us has tantrous sex, the other two are just there. Watching Sting have all love with all his groupies, and Rod Stewart's just happy to be alive. Something like that?
No opinions about Bryan Adams!
I want to do something about a little ditty, but that's John Cougar Mellencamp. Why do I always confuse Bryan Adams and John Cougar Mellencamp? Not similar at all.
Not at all. No, I mean, they're both like white guys who sing.
Bryan Adams was like, what was his big hit? You know, he did
a whole mess of stuff.
Oh. Yeah, but he's got that one 90s just like anthem.
Like, you know, all of our older sisters are big on Bryan Adams.
Well, you know, I gave it a go.
Well, there it is. You know what? I'll take it. I do it for you. Oh, from Robin Hood.
Everything I do. Oh, Costner and before the Costner songs.
And do you have any idea what this song, All for Love, is tied to? Similarly to I Do It For You?
Is it a motion picture?
It is tied to a motion picture. Now, we mentioned it previously as it was on the top of the charts for 1 week. It also featured 3 prominent dudes.
3 Men and a Baby?
3 Musketeers.
Oh, okay. Well, you know.
This was the theme song to that. So there you go. But as we move forward, 3 Musketeers, not the top movie. Can you guess who the top movie would be in the 10th week after it opened?
What are we? Are we on Titanic yet?
No, it's still Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, yes. I don't do a good Mrs. Doubtfire. Now, of course,
we jumped 3 weeks ahead between episodes here. So Mrs. Doubtfire took a break because the top movie for the 2 weeks that we missed, fantastic movie, Philadelphia.
Oh, Tom Hanks. Denzel
Tom Hanks'
Washington.
Heartbreaking performance
Streets
in
of
Philadelphia. Thank you. Boy, this is a really musical episode.
Thanks, man.
Somewhere our friend is dying. Wow, a lot of very important movies. I mean, Mrs. Doubtfire is really fun. Philadelphia is important. But what else was important that night, Mike? Perhaps on our televisions.
Oh, yeah, Keith. Well, let me go ahead. Let me get to the TV guide.
Uh-huh.
Let's go to the TV guide proper here. And,
oh, my goodness. That's such a good idea.
In this market, this was Saturday evening in this market.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And what network was it on?
It was on... it must... Well, I don't know. It's the same network as... Well, I don't know. 31.
Channel 31. Okay.
Channel 31 and wherever this was, which it doesn't say on where the...
Probably says on the first page of the insert for the TV listings.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Hold on.
Because it had like it's like a playbill where it has like a wraparound, which is the national stuff.
Rochester, New York, Keith.
Rochester, New York. That's where I went to college.
Yeah, crazy, huh? And look at this. New releases.
Wait, see if I can remember what was 31.
On page 36, Keith, they have something called the VCR report, and this is new releases to VHS that you should check out.
Oh, nice. What's out?
Well, Cary Elves as Robin and Dave Chappelle, they spring into anachronism in Robin Hood Men in Tights, Keith.
Dave Chappelle was in that?
Yeah, Dave Chappelle was in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
31 had to be Fox. I think it was Fox.
And then in TV Update, the first page there is the Arnold saga continues. Now Tom's own version. It's Tom Arnold, and his I guess he's Tom Arnolding. Okay, so here
it was 31. Boo! It was Fox. I knew that because
so
I went
Fox,
to college there.
Well, Deep Space Nine aired at 6:00 on Saturday evening.
That makes sense.
Surrounding it, Keith, and we haven't been able to, so it was going directly up against the NFC playoff game, a telecast from San Francisco.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yes. So if I guess you once things got dire, you just swapped over to Deep Space Nine.
Oh God. Well, I mean, but here's the thing. So I mean, not get too far into sports ball. Although this might have been after this might have been the NFC Championship game because in the divisional playoffs, my football hero and still my hero to this day is Phil Simms of the New York Football Giants, and on the in the playoffs in the divisional round in San Francisco after beating the Vikings. We lost to the 49ers 44-3. And that was Phil Simms' final game in his career because he was subsequently cut by the New York Football Giants after a Pro Bowl season, leading the team to an 11-5 record to save salary cap money. You want to know how much he was making, Mike? They cut their Pro Bowl quarterback. They cut him to save money. He had a contract coming up for 1994 for $2.5 million.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, Keith, you know what?
I'm not salty about it.
Sometimes
I'm not angry about it.
Some champions go out on top, and some go out on their back. Phil Simms is
some of them throw 3 interceptions and a playoff loss to the 49ers.
Well, speaking of that, Keith, speaking of going out on your back, Keith, it turns out that Deep Space Nine was going head-to-head on TBS at 6:05 with WCW Wrestling. Also, fun things airing at 6 p.m. on a Saturday here in Rochester. Major Dad was on USA. WGN was playing Saved by the Bell. And WOR was rerunning Charles in Charge. Or was that in its initial run? No, can't be. What else we got?
No, I think that would have to be a rerun.
Yeah, that was an 80s show. Wasn't it? Maybe not. Janet Jackson had a full hour block on MTV. Nickelodeon had a show called Arcade. We were watching bowling on GRC. And let's see. Discovery had Swing Under the Swastika, so I don't know what that was.
That's not great.
And AMC was playing The Real Glory. And on Channel 68, Star Trek Next Gen was on. So not a lot happening at 6 p.m. on a Saturday in Rochester.
No, but you want to know who is who's wrestling on WCW in 1994? Not a great era for them. Vader defeated Chris Nelson. Ooh. Sting, Dustin Rhodes, and Brian Pillman defeated the Harlem Heat and the Equalizer. And this is fun. United States champion, stunning Steve Austin defeated Brady Boone.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we get to prime time, interestingly, Dr. Quinn was like airing all kinds of on a few channels.
Dr. Quinn was
huge, yeah. A show called Mommies was on. Problem Child 2, the movie, was on Channel 13. And, okay. Listen, no wonder Deep Space Nine got some eyeballs. There wasn't much else on.
Well, folks, that is, that's what happens. You get a lot of extra bonus content when Mike finds a TV guide from 1994. And we're not even done.
It is literally disintegrating in my hands as we talk.
Well, awesome. All right, but before we get too much further, we got to hit the hard news, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do it.
And I used that word intentionally this week.
Okay, can't wait. This is gonna be a dick joke.
It sure is, because guess what? The Weekly World News says there's a super pill that fires up your love life. Basically, they manifested Viagra, which would be approved 2 years later. So the idea of Viagra in 1994 was a Weekly World News fantasy. Only 2 years later was it fast-tracked like you wouldn't believe to approval in 1996. So Super Pill, there you go. Blue Chew, if you would like to sponsor us, we will happily do a Blue Chew ad every week.
Keith,
we're over 40.
Speaking of manifesting, because I do these, I edit it asynchronously. That story right there explains why there's a very long eggplant as your sticker on your console this week.
Oh, great. Great. So glad that's already happened. Okay. Yeah. Yikes. All right. Well, guess what? It is time to talk about this episode, which was directed by Weinrich Colby, who last directed Melora, and was written by Morgan Gendel, who last wrote on The Passenger. And this is Morgan's last episode of Trek. So now, what do you say we just do some quick hits of something trivial? Now Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia. Okay, so this script was actually originally going to feature Dax and Bashir, not O'Brien and Bashir.
Interesting.
It is interesting. We've definitely, I think they pulled it back because they've hit that a lot. But looking forward, it's actually kind of really important that it's O'Brien. So interesting, like that how things might have ended differently, or at least like unfolded differently on Deep Space Nine had they left it as Dax.
I kind of love it as them though. I feel like it was important for their relationship.
That's right. I mean, it's a giant moment in the O'Brien-Bashir relationship, and it would have been weird not to have it. So, speaking of things that are weird, now I speak endlessly about the incredible work of the production staff on this show. The effects, the sound, the lighting, the makeup, the creature design, the hair, the everything. It's extraordinary work by extraordinary people. But this piece of trivia had me like, huh? Really? Because this episode was nominated for an Emmy for hairstyling.
Oh, because people had like sombrero hair?
The ridiculous hair in this episode. So, to each his own. Okay. So, and lastly, O'Brien and Bashir work to replace a Chambers coil in the communications device, and this was last referenced in Wrath of Khan when the Reliant claims that coil was broken. So a nice little nugget of in-canon trivia referencing Wrath of Khan in this episode.
Okay.
All right, so what was Next Generation doing? Oh boy, Mike, you probably haven't seen this episode, and it is legendary because this week the Next Generation aired Sub Rosa, in which Dr. Crusher does the dirty with her grandmother's ex, who happens to be a ghost trapped in a candle. I wish I could say I made up any of that.
I'm kind of here for it.
That is all 100% true, what I just said. Dr. Crusher does the dirty with her grandma's ex, who is a ghost trapped in a candle.
One of Jen's friends, part of his gig is he sources like fancy candles to sell in like upscale retail shops, and we get a few like on the sly. And there's this one candle. I wish I could remember the name of the brand. Probably doesn't matter. It's like $75, and it's a small candle. So for $75, it better be infused with a ghost that somebody can bang.
Yeah, I mean, like your grandfather's ex-girlfriend.
I mean, well, she send me a pic. Let me see. Don't judge till you know.
No, that's true. It might just look like
it didn't
our
escape
first
me.
Guest star.
It didn't escape me that Keiko was single for like 11 minutes this week.
For a hot second, yes, we of course have Rosalind Chow as Keiko. Mike, you still got a shot, buddy. Mm-hmm. And Darlene Carr as Etishara, Peter White as Sharat, Larry Cedar as Nydrum, and Bill Mondi as Jackin. So, I think it is now time to hop into our screening room, and we have a little bonus content before we discuss.
We sure do,
episode.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I know your profile says your husband was just vaporized by mysterious radiation, but you up?
I think you get the eggplant emoji now, sir. I think it has to shift from my console to yours.
Maybe.
Mike is living at home by himself at the moment, and it's pretty obvious.
Okay. Well, folks, here he is, the man, the myth, everybody's favorite, my new favorite. I was questioning him in the beginning, but I'm fully on board now.
89 cents, the TV guide.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Let me see. We also got, look at this badass spread. Yes.
Nice.
And then we got some awesome pictures of him in, what was that, TJ Hooker?
TJ Hooker, yeah.
Yep. And let me see if I can. Yeah, that.
Spencer for Hire.
Yeah, Spencer for Hire. And then this awesome shot.
Oh my God, 90s! Oh my God, 1994 just reached to the screen and slapped me.
So 90s. All right, I feel like let's let it sit here. No, this is what it wants. Okay, so I'm going to read some of these because I think they're pretty important. All right, TV Guide opens up with the hard-hitting question, Keith. The Star Trek series and films can, in theory, help foster deeper understanding and better communication among people. But do they? For you, what are the tangibles? And Avery says, for me, this is as hardcore as it gets because I'm brown and American and male. It's important for me and for our brown children everywhere to be able to think in the long term. Today, many of our children, especially males, do not project that they will live past the age of 19 or 20. Star Trek allows children the chance to see something they might not otherwise imagine. My life's work has always been about making way for succeeding generations. I mean, that's deep. Coming right at the top of the interview. They say, well, which episode of Deep Space Nine was personally the most meaningful for you thus far? Avery Brooks says the pilot, which saw Sisko coming to terms with the death of his wife. To go on living after a tremendous loss is one of the greatest human stories. TV Guide says the previous two Trek series eventually emerged as star vehicles for the actors, especially the ones playing the captains. Deep Space Nine is more of an ensemble piece. Was there a conscious effort to achieve that? Brooks. It was just luck of the draw. The producers have assembled an extraordinary group of seasoned people, and I'm not saying that just because we're still on the air. Most of the time, it's a joy to come to work because I like them. In particularly, the work I do with Colin Meaney and Nana Visitor brings me much joy. Name drops just a few. What happened to Sisko's relationship with his son Jake? This was a highly publicized aspect of the show when it's premiered, and now it appears to be on the back burner. Only a season and a half in, and they're really judging that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see Jake every episode.
True.
But
I guess they must have used it in the marketing a ton up front.
Well, I think they talked about it before the show episode dropped a lot. But anyway.
Avery Brooks says, with a group as large as this, it's going to take time for everybody's piece to be sorted. I certainly hope there'll be more episodes with my son for the show to have a chance to show the difficulty and even the joy of being a single parent is important to me, especially because he is a male and I am a male. We just shot an episode about Jake moving out of the child thing and into young adulthood, which I was very pleased with. The more we can show of that personal side, the more attractive the show is to me. And then there's some more questions about his blah, blah, blah. TV Guide. You live alone in Los Angeles, where you filmed Deep Space Nine. Your wife and children remain in New Jersey. This is a tremendous personal sacrifice. Avery Brooks. I love this. Avery Brooks. I don't like to talk about it, you dig? That's it. There's nothing to discuss. I won't talk about how frequently they come or they go. I understand the fishbowl nature of show business, but it's nobody's business but mine and my family's. My only responsibility is to show up for work and deliver the best I can. Besides, I see no value in discussing the difficulty of holding a family together. In the early part of this century, people went anywhere they needed to in order to gain work, for as long as they needed to.
There it is.
Even in matters professionally, you're notoriously press shy. Avery Brooks, in maybe one of the chef's kisses quotes of all time. I've not lived long enough yet to have anything profound to say. Perhaps I will if I live to be a septuagenarian, but for now, I'm still accumulating. Baller. Right. Some more fluff questions, and then, you grew up with music. Avery Brooks, my father had a voice that shook the walls like thunder. He sang for a very famous gospel group named Wings Over Jordan. My mother was a pianist, organist, choral conductor, and one of the first black women to get a master's degree in music from Northwestern. My uncle was one of the original Delta Rhythm Boys. While teaching at Rutgers, I sang with such jazz artists as Jon Hendricks, Butch Morris, and Lester Bowie. For years, I straddled the fence between the academic and the performance. Might the academic win one day? Yeah. The older I get, the more tired I get. I think maybe I'll slow down. He laughs. It's said that you will only accept roles of dignity and integrity. I thought this was a great exchange. It is said that you will only accept roles of dignity and integrity, but But that's hardly all there is to the human spectrum. You're an actor. Avery Brooks cuts him off. I call myself an artist. Very well, you're an artist. Isn't this attitude a bit narrow-minded? I mean, this is a TV Guide interview.
I know, they're going at it.
Avery Brooks, it's the way I was raised. I know of no other way to approach my work. When I talk with children who think that I have made it, I tell them about the time, even after Spencer for Hire had started airing, that I was in New York rehearsing the lead role in the opera X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X, for the American Music Theater Festival. After getting a telephone call from my agency, I broke away from rehearsal to go read for a television role. When I saw the script, the character was merely listed as the black dude in a pink hat. So the stereotypical black pimp. Nobody with the show was remotely interested in what was going on inside that person, much less his name. The approach was superficial, and it was going to remain that way. I found the contrast between these two opportunities to be so overwhelming that I never again auditioned for a demeaning role again. But what about the financial realities of the business? Would you argue to young, struggling African-American actors to turn down such a part? Damn. I've always picked and chosen carefully, and the consequence of that means I may or may not work, and more likely the latter. I'm ready to accept that consequence, but I'm not judging anybody else. I know what I have to do to be able to live with myself and to look my children in the eyes. TV Guide. Yet, you yourself came under fire for starring in a very violent A Man Called Hawk. Avery Brooks. At that time, many people in the press just asked how I could possibly justify my participation. I find it incredibly irresponsible and ultimately ludicrous to suggest that television is somehow responsible for the problems we faced for decades, for centuries. We live in a country whose very history is violent. In many ways, it was founded with violent acts, yes? We miss the mark when we ask the film and television industries to do what we cannot ourselves do. Our problems were not brought on by the riflemen, and we cannot teach our children the difference. If we cannot teach our children the difference between fiction and reality, then those problems lie with us.
Yeah.
Then there's some more. Right. And then I'll give you the last couple questions here, and then we'll move on. You're on a hit TV series. Your show is carefully scrutinized. Questions are asked. Is Deep Space Nine a weaker show than The Next Generation? Is Avery Brooks stacking up to Patrick Stewart and William Shatner? You have to deal with these things. No, I don't. Somebody else is making those analyses. My ego is not that large, by the way. It never was. I was hired to do a job. I bring the best I have to work every day. If that's not sufficient, then nothing I can do about it. I'm not trying to be glib. There's literally nothing I can do to change that. Are you uncomfortable with comparisons to Stewart and Shatner? The Trekkers really seem to want to make it a contrast, captain versus commander. Well, they can, and there's nothing I can do about it. But doesn't any aspect of this tickle you? Avery Brooks laughs. Not that I'll share with you. I certainly don't resemble either of them. We're highly different beings. And then finally, are you reluctant to be part of the Star Trek phenomenon? Of course. But what's the harm? What's the danger? And he ends the interview with, the danger is believing that you really have some important part to play in it. The law of gravity denies that.
I mean, that's the thing. Like Avery, and he is consistent. He has always been this way. He will always be this way. He's a man of integrity. He does not suffer fools. He doesn't care what people think. He has, he brings with him the context of history, the uncomfortable context of history to everything that he does, and we're going to see it as it moves forward. And in a lot of ways, it's funny, like, to see this interview from 1994. It feels like an interview from 2022.
Yeah, I was going to say it could be a retrospective looking back. I mean, it's really
he's way ahead of his time in terms of like integrity and not shying away from context and it's.
I would imagine
he's a fascinating guy.
I would imagine that analysis he has about the comparisons to the other commanders is got to be part of the reason he got the gig, because if you were to really meditate on that, it could crush you as a performer, and you could never give the kind of performance that he's thus far given.
Well, and it is part of the job, right? Every captain in every series after the original series has started with a tremendous amount of hatred and resentment, and like people who who get so angry about the contemporary shows and Discovery and the angry people about New Trek or whatever. Yeah, well, people were saying the exact same thing about Patrick Stewart and The Next Generation in 1987.
Right.
And then they were saying about Deep Space Nine. Then they were saying it about Kate Mulgrew. Every single one of them starts out being hated, and only moving forward do we gain some appreciation for it. So yeah, I imagine in the hiring process, you're like, hey, guess what? You're going to do this awesome new thing, and it's going to be a great job. But all the super fans, or many of the super fans, they're going to hate you for a while. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to love you. And that sort of is the pattern that has happened through every generation of Star Trek. And yeah, I mean, it's good to go in with the attitude of like, I can't control this. It's not my business. I'm going to do my job. So
I thought it was a great interview.
Great interview, and I think knowing him a little bit does inform the show moving forward and does inform his performance. All right, so let's finally talk about Armageddon game, and we begin in the teaser with Bashir and O'Brien are on an alien ship helping two formerly warring species disarm their super powerful bioweapons. It's a very dangerous situation made impossible to take serious due to Andy Dick's insane hair. It's not actually Andy Dick, just looks a lot like
it. Does
him.
look like Andy Dick.
We'll see Andy Dick on Star Trek later. Apparently, this war...
Those are Emmy award-winning, Keith, so check yourself.
I know. Come on, tell me he doesn't look like Andy Dick.
He does kind of look like Andy Dick, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So apparently, this war was between the brown bucket-head elves and the black and gray chode elves. They've been working for a week, but Bashir is incredibly frustrated by the resiliency of their weapons. They put one last biobomb in the bucket, and this time it finally works. It's a very big deal. This leads BGC and Andy Dick's stunt double to do some speeches and agree that the work isn't done until all the scientific data is also destroyed. So this could never be replicated again. Just like America and Russia did after the Cold War. Oh, wait, what's that? They made a ton more that were even bigger? Cool. So we go to Act 1. And all right, so we've had our teaser. Mike, weigh in on the teaser here.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that they were there on like a peacekeeping mission and that they had to destroy the weapons. I thought it was a very altruistic idea. No even hint of the fallout of what could be. I mean, obviously there's going to be some because it's the teaser, but I thought it was. I was in. I definitely was in.
So in Act 1, O'Brien and Bashir zoom Cisco with the good news. Cisco tells him to stay for the cast party, even though O'Brien wants to go home like I would.
Well, he was definitely pimping for Bashir there.
He wanted to wingman Bashir, but O'Brien's like, I don't know, there's some guy in a podcast hitting pretty hard on my wife, so I better get back to the station.
Yeah, pretty soon it won't be an eggplant that's encroaching on the screen. All right.
Ew.
That's the face. Avery's like, yeah, go get some Bashir. Go find you a buckethead ballerina.
Yes. So back on the cool-looking ship, Bashir. See that? What a great-looking shot
so
that
cool.
is.
Yeah.
That ship looks great. The planet looks great. That whole thing looks fantastic. Bashir is given the honor of destroying the very last Red Bull. But that's when the big chode heads attack.
Now I can't see anything but Andy Dick.
They shoot all the scientists until Bashir and O'Brien somehow overpower them with Starfleet elbows.
I mean, suspension of disbelief, but literally they they Rambo everybody except these two. I mean, did you see O'Brien's barrel roll? It was not particularly impressive.
Well, it's probably about as good as our barrel rolls.
Yeah, that's true. Or these screenshots that I tried to take, but didn't go well.
Yeah, I mean, they're very good at fighting for some reason.
The best line here is Bashir just goes, "They're all dead."
Like your Starfleet double punch and elbow killed them?
No, it's they got blasted.
Okay.
But that witch's cauldron in the middle looks like something's about to pop.
Yeah, there's a problem. So, but in the fight, O'Brien is splashed with the bioweapon goo, and we don't notice it. Or we do, but they don't. They can't get in contact with the shuttle, but they are able to beam down to the surface before the BGCs get inside. And they set the transporter to overload after they do to cover their tracks. So we're on a little, escape and chasey sort of a deal here.
It's funny you go from, I was thinking, you go from such a great CGI look outside, and the zoomed out picture of the set's really great, but then once we zoom in a little too much, the hoax style here is a little high.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have
the up-res didn't help
the
here.
budget to backlight a lot of that stuff. It doesn't look great. Doesn't look great up-resed. But hey, look, they had to build that set in 2 days.
Yeah, it's fine.
The phasers look cool though.
Yeah.
So in Act 2, Sisko is ordering what sounds like a delicious breakfast when Kira says that the Buckethead elves and the BGC ambassadors have shown up and need to talk to him. They head back to the office, and the two ambassadors announce that Bashir and O'Brien are dead. And they say that O'Brien triggered a security device, killing everybody. Sisko asks for proof, and they give him the security tapes.
On a USB drive? It looks a lot like a USB drive.
Well, Star Trek is famous for inventing things before they happen. They invented the iPad. So, I mean, we see it on screen now, and it's no big deal. He's tapping away on the pad. That didn't exist when this came out.
That's wild.
So, it doesn't even look weird. So they say that they don't blame O'Brien, but it's clear that the Chodehead ambassador, the Chode elf, is lying. So we get a decent matte painting of the surface. Not bad.
I think it's good. We've been getting criticized, Keith, that we're a little too hard on these matte paintings.
Well, I mean, I think the paintings themselves are beautiful. I mean, they're. I think the matte artists are incredibly talented, and yeah, I mean, the one from last episode, it is a beautiful painting. The only thing that's sort of to criticize about it is it's very clearly a painting.
Yeah, but I mean, as an establishing shot on a 4x3, passing by on your little TV, it's not like it's getting
with it.
Yeah, it's not like we're staying on this. When we stay on the screenshot for too long, yeah, for sure, but.
No, I mean, it is just a limitation of the technology of the time. There's just flat out, and movies had to do the same thing.
This whole next scene, in fact, all of the scenes of them in this little hovel that they're kind of hiding out in, I think the lighting is so awesome. They do all this kind of cool external lighting, and it's really neat.
Yeah, well, and lighting is a thing that you can do well, regardless of the budget.
Right.
Regardless of how the set looks, you can always light it well, and that's actually perhaps why the set on the ship in the laboratory doesn't look as good, because it's a lab, so it's basically they just turned on the fluorescent lights
it's washed.
at the top, and so it's a little bit overlit, which is why you can't really hide some of the detail work, which didn't look good. But it's a science lab. It's going to be lit like that. So we see that they're on a wasteland of a city that was destroyed years before in the war. O'Brien and Bashir find some emergency supplies after O'Brien is smart enough to check it for booby traps.
Which is a great juxtaposition to what he was just accused of.
Right. Yeah.
Setting off a booby trap.
For sure. They discuss the Chode elves' motivations, and Bashir wants to make a run for it. But O'Brien says they're more likely to be detected if they're moving around, and their best bet is to hide in place and wait for the Federation. Partially, this is a good idea, and partially because they budgeted for an on-the-run episode and realized they couldn't afford it.
Well, it's also very similar to the advice Keith's mom always gave him when they went to the mall. If you get lost, Keith, meet me at the fountain in the middle, all right? Mm-hmm. Did you have a mall where you were?
Hell yeah, we did.
Okay.
Burlington Square Mall.
Great. I'm just saying, you make it sound like you lived in a GD wood cabin in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I did, but we could drive to a mall from there.
And once you got those chains on the wheels.
We had chains on the tires, for sure. All right. Where am I? Uh, what they don't know, and we do, is that Cisco has been told they're dead and will not be looking for them. So their waiting out is maybe not going to work. That phaser rifle's great. I want one of
the
those.
lighting helps, yeah.
Then O'Brien finds a communication device. Maybe he can fix it. Bashir wants to backseat fix, but O'Brien tells him to go away. And, Bashir's being annoying, but is lit really well.
Mm-hmm.
So back on the station, we see Cisco watch the security tapes. It starts out as what we saw, but then is clearly doctored. O'Brien, drinking coffee, announces that there's a weird program running that he can't shut down. Damn those pop-up ads. There's a flash, and then everyone is vaporized.
Looks like they also invented the deep fake, huh, Keith?
They sure did. Yeah. Which I would imagine in this time frame, like, they would... we're going to have to deal with this now, right? T-minus right now. How do we adjudicate the validity of video and audio? Because, used to play the tape. Oh, it's proof. Well, now, even you and I could do something that sounds...
I do it for work.
Yeah.
So, I use a program, and it basically compiles... I do a lot of voiceover for my work, and it has recorded, once it gets past, I believe it's 12 hours of one single person's voice, it has enough to compile... I think for me, it's put together like 250 words, which is a pretty good vocabulary that it can UI deep fake. So, if I'm going and I do a lot of click tutorials, so it's like move your mouse here, click this, click the red box, blah, blah, blah. If I have to go in and there's a UI change and we have to change just like one or two words, I can just click the word, delete it, retype it into the transcript, and it will use my voice to AI fake it. And that's like the lowest level of what the tech can do.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's already here.
Right.
There was that documentary on Anthony Bourdain, and they used an AI version of his voice, compiled version of his voice to do some voiceover. Now, the filmmakers chose to disclose that at the top of the movie. They were still criticized for whatever reason, but that's them still being generous enough to mention that they did that. They could very well have just made you think he had recorded this.
Well, and I think the scary parts of that are incoming. Like, hey, 2024 election is coming, and election meddling moving forward is probably not going to be finding the damn emails. It's going to be, here's a flawless video of candidate X doing something horrible.
Well, here's my not so conspiracy theory, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to, I don't know what they're going to do with it. I'm just going to say that this is the problem. So, my family, a lot of people out there download these apps that takes your face and is like, oh, here's what I'd look like old. Here's what I'd look like a girl. All those stupid things.
Now
but
China owns all of your things.
That's the thing. In that agreement, in that TOS that you signed in the very beginning, you released your data. So now all these scans of your face that, as you can see, can be AI'd onto anything, exist somewhere for someone. Now, I'm not saying they'll do anything nefarious with it, but if you've seen anything about, the human species, the prospect isn't good.
No, we are not prepared for our digital security with that type of a thing moving forward. Anyway, let's go back to 1994 before we were doing those cameras. So Dax, Odo, and Kira are pissed and want to investigate. Cisco is sad but stoic and tells them to arrange a new doctor and a new engineer. He sets the memorial service at 6 o'clock and dismisses the senior staff. Always, God, and there's a scene later with Rosalind Chow. Those are the hardest friggin' scenes to act. To be told somebody is dead cold. Oh, it's so hard. Because
you could go either way. We talked on many of our shows about, and I talked on the watch along about how the easy choice is to just be hysterical, right? It's not always easy to act that, but that's your instinct goes there. But as Keith and I have mentioned before, fighting emotion is a much more active and interesting thing to watch than someone just be hysterical. Now, when we get to the Keiko scene, you could argue that someone learning their spouse just got obliterated would probably freak out. But as they do a great job in the episode to explain, I think, it's something as a military wife or I get that's the best way I can say it.
Well, close. Yes, pretty close.
Yeah. You're almost always prepared for it when they go to work, or a firefighter, or a Gold Star family in any way. They're almost. It doesn't make it easy, but you're kind of prepared.
And I think this comes up a lot in police investigations where we do not understand shock. And we don't understand that everybody reacts to shock in different ways, and many people become very stoic. They shut down everything, and then they use that as an excuse, like, oh, we clearly killed his wife. He wasn't crying.
Right.
Well, no, that's not how we work. Anyway, back on the planet, Bashir saunters around bored. He starts to annoy O'Brien by chatting. He was hoping to go to Pound Town with a Talani woman, and they continue discussing women and marriage. Apparently, Bashir was once in love, and it didn't work out. He says that marriage isn't fair to their spouses because of how dangerous their jobs are. He eventually clocks how offensive that is to O'Brien, but doubles down by mentioning that moving to Deep Space Nine has not been good for O'Brien's marriage. Really interesting conversation there.
I thought so too. In fact, often Julian is a little immature, a little brash or rash, and here it's the same. But what I thought was really great about the writing, I think the writing this whole episode is excellent. What I thought was really great about the writing here is that I think he's wanting to have a moment, but what's being reciprocated is a lot of bluster from O'Brien, and also he's sort of talking down to him a bunch. What's the word I'm looking for? He's
condescending.
He's condescending. He's a little emasculating of him. You can't help. Don't bother. Blah, blah. Yeah, why don't you go over there and fiddle with your shit? And I think that some of what comes out from Julian isn't just him he clocks that he's being a little offensive when he's talking about the relationships and how career officers wouldn't even consider it. But I think you see in his performance, and I think it's a great performance here too.
Yeah, I do too.
He decides he's going to push some buttons because you've been being a dick to me. I'm going to be a dick to you. And I think that sets the tension between them a little higher. And I think he's justified a little bit to be a little pissed off. And it helps the resolution later, I think.
Yeah. And you talk about the writing, because like the standard way to write that scene is beat one. He says something that he realizes is offensive to O'Brien. O'Brien bristles. He backs down and apologizes, changes the subject or whatever. That's the standard way to write that scene. But in this case, beat two, we see him clocking that I'm offended this and choosing to escalate it intentionally. And that was that surprised me when I watched it.
Yep.
I expected him to back down. He said, no, actually, I'm going to go down a little further. Just good writing, and like you said, I think this is. I think I wrote it later, but I think this is Alex Siddig's best performance of the show.
100%, 100% agree.
So O'Brien puts on a blanket, and Bashir immediately clocks that he is sick. He starts examining him and discovers, he has been infected by the harvesters.
And he was in Nexium, Keith, apparently.
Big problem. Which we go to Act 3, and Cisco goes to have the talk with Keiko. She can tell immediately by his face what happened. Rosalind does a good job not overdoing it in a really difficult scene as an actor. Like I said, it is an impossible task, especially because it's coming. She's read the script, so she has to play normal, play the shock, and decide how to receive that. I thought
they're both doing it, and Ben clearly is upset, but he's got to deliver this news as commander. They both have relationships. Ben wants to say so much, but all he says is he was a great officer. There's so much. It's a great example of a scene where nothing is on the page. It's everything's between the lines, which is cool.
Less is more. So back on the planet, O'Brien's eyes start failing. Bashir tries to take his place in fixing the communications device, and O'Brien tries talking him through the repair. We go back to Quarks, and Dax and Kira talk. Apparently, O'Brien gave Bashir gave Dax his diaries to help get to know him better. Okay, Mike, giving a girl your diaries that you think is cute, that is a serial killer move, buddy. That is weird.
Okay, hold on though. Before we throw that stone, Keith.
Okay.
I want you to think about some of the courting you've done in your time, myself included.
Sure.
We're both here. What's one of the things you maybe do on the first date, or you wait a couple dates, but eventually it's like, hey, listen to this song I wrote. Hey, listen, hey, watch these YouTube videos that I clipped together of these songs I wrote. Listen to these demos I did of these love songs.
Like and subscribe, baby.
Yeah. So there's the different. That's analogous to like a doctor who was going through a bunch of stuff and he like kept all his journals of his time in med school. Like that's his flex to her. There's no difference.
No.
It's not like his dear diary. It's more just his. He was just doing it. Do not throw that stone, buddy. You played those
Play
songs.
somebody a song.
You sat down and played all those ditties. Spark in my eyes. You were like, this is gonna get in those pants.
Sure, yes. However, those ditties, hoping that I would achieve, you know what I mean, those were intentionally designed to be public. Those were like intentionally, this is to show you something. Like it is not quite the same thing as like a Dear Diary. It was weird. I'm telling you. No. Guys, right below. Is it as innocent as Mike playing his YouTube videos?
It's definitely not as savage as her having not read them. Although maybe those are the right call.
No, because there are boundaries.
Well, Kira doesn't think so because Dax is like, maybe I should give them to his family. And Kira's like, nah, why don't you hang on to them?
No, it's like, no. The boundaries, right? Because it's like, right, you might...
Keith, I've got your books, right? If you kick it, what do you want me to do with those? Should I give them to Sean, or should I just like
my books that are publicly available on Amazon now?
Links below?
Links below? Probably literally are links below.
I know, it's a joke.
No, that's not the same thing. It's like, hey, check out my browser history.
I don't think it's as creepy as Keith's making it. He was showing the vulnerable side. I think it's fine.
So it's
not his high school diary. It's his med school stuff. It's when he was like becoming a doctor.
So what?
Keith, it's not. Look, it's one thing to court a humanoid. I mean, if you're trying to court a trill, you got to go for it. You got to go for the kill when you're courting a trill.
There's a t-shirt. Okay, folks, tell Mike he's wrong. So
you know what to do, guys.
Anyway, so he said that in
JD,
there were
I want a 3-page report and go.
He said they were his innermost thoughts and dreams and insecurities about pressure, but she never read them. You want to know why? Because it's class A creepy and she understands boundaries. It's just like, here, look at the poop I made. Boundaries.
It's not poop? Okay. It depends.
It's not written for public.
I mean, if you want me to show you how the bidet works because you're interested, I'll show you.
No, thank you. Like if you all right, so let's say he was like, "Oh, I'm going to do like a little WordPress blog."
I have the journal entry I wrote the day I met my wife. I had framed and I gave to her as a present.
Yes, that one entry, that one thing. All right, whatever. And you weren't just handing it to some random girl on the street. You're like,
Dax ain't rando. They've been flirty flirts for a while.
He's just like, I'm riding the N train, saw a hot girl across from me, got a boner. Here, read this.
That's not what his journal's like. That's what your journal's like. But Julian's is much more sophisticated. It's just pictures of eggplants spanning pages.
It's just Dax.
So next, Quark comes over and
Dax. All right.
has a great little Quark scene.
Quark shows up and offers them free, mostly empty drinks. They do a toast. He commemorates them by saying they paid their bills on time. Then Keiko barges into Ops, wanting to talk to Sisko. She shows him the video again, but she points to O'Brien drinking coffee. He's drinking in the late afternoon, but he never drinks in the late afternoon.
That's how she figured it out? She didn't notice the, like, clear cut in the video? Like, you see it happen.
You know, it just could have been a tracking issue on the
you're
VCR
right.
You don't know. But she said he never drinks coffee in the afternoon, except for that one time on Next Generation when he did. But anyway, she figured out that the video has been, tampered with. Dax and Sisko head back to the planet to investigate.
You know what I love about this scene while we're here? We talked about writing before. The easy way to write this scene is to have everybody scoff and not believe her and to be very skeptical. Easy way to write the scene, and then they get their comeuppance when she is right, proved right. But no, they all give deference to her opinion, to her belief, and Sisko jumps to action right away. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that I expected the episode to be about her convincing them he's not dead, which I think would be a good episode.
Yeah, but time.
But that's
time.
But the time. You don't have the time for that. Anyway, so we're running long today.
It's okay. We're good.
But Mike, if Jen needed to prove that you had not been vaporized when she saw something on a video, what would it be? What would the thing that you would be doing that would prove?
That's a great question. What a great question. I should have been ready for something like that. Some sort of thing like, as clean as I am, I'm probably folding the laundry or something like that, or
not using your bidet.
Yeah, like Mike, me going to get like 3 rolls of toilet paper because I'm like toilet paper free now because I'm bidet all the time, or like doing the cat litter, or like something like that. I
regret having asked that. I think for me, it would be sort of similarly stupid. Like, if you saw me not watching the Bruins game or the Giants game or something, like, if it's not like I don't tape delay stuff.
It was 1:05 on a Sunday. There's no chance he wouldn't have been watching the game. Like, he wouldn't have been out at the, doing science experiments.
Like 1:05 on a Sunday, and I'm like going to get a cup of coffee. No. Under no circumstances.
Well, also, it's like, wasn't it suspicious the way they really, like, if you're going to deep fake a video, have him be like, I wonder what this is. Beep. But instead, they have him like, I've never seen anything like this before. Do you think I should push it? Okay, I'm about to push it. Boop. And it wasn't even like an explosion. They just instantly disappear.
Yeah, well, they didn't have budget for that, okay?
I know, but what's great about that is that speaking of writing, at least they took the time. Sometimes it added exposition, you're like, ugh. But sometimes it works. Like, they have Odo instantly be like, I have heard about these types of fail-safes. It's not bizarre at all. In fact, it's quite plausible. Believe me, I'm Odo.
Well, but, like, it would be. Like, why wouldn't it be that way? And honestly, like, opening up the file you shouldn't have opened up is going to come up in the future.
No, in fact, since we're all here, let's take this as an opportunity for an all staff. We should get some protection like this for our bridge because we've been attacked and taken over pretty easily, like maybe 2-3 times already. So maybe we need like a fail-safe booby trap.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. I mean, you got that little malware. So yeah, I mean, actually, there's going to be a spoiler alert, a fantastic episode of Deep Space Nine where they find a little piece of malware on the station that will escalate in fantastic ways. All right. Anyway, Dax. So on the surface, Bashir and O'Brien continue to work on the device while O'Brien gets sicker. O'Brien asks about the woman that got away from Bashir, doing a pretty solid Bashir impression. He says he was dating a ballerina with exquisite feet, which proves it was a lie. A ballerina with exquisite feet is like the girlfriend who lives in Canada because point shoes are murder on feet.
Yeah, but ballet might change, buddy. We might evolve past the just friggin' crazy feet that dancers have. Because it's true, their feet are crazy.
Whoever
and
wrote
generally
this
they are
clearly
too, but
never did date a dancer. Because that is like the one thing the ballet dancers have beautiful everything, but their feet look like a wood chipper.
Yeah, not great.
All right.
But he didn't say he said her arches, and they do have nice arches.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
Mangled toes,
all the
nice
bleeding
arches.
and calluses and such. Anyway, I dated a ballroom dancer. Her feet were fine. So Bashir puts a gizmo in the device, and it lights up. But it doesn't work yet. Bashir continues his story. He lost the dancer because he wouldn't give up his Starfleet career, thus putting more context to his previous conversation with O'Brien. O'Brien says that... I just wrote a nonsense sentence. It doesn't even say
Well, he says throw some WD-40 on that shit and get it in the machine.
Yeah, exactly. O'Brien can't work anymore. He is suffering.
Oh, he can't walk anymore. His
he
legs.
Can't, he can't walk anymore. He can't see anymore. He is clearly suffering. This will be a running theme for the rest of the series. So, Mike, keep an eye out. Drinking game every time O'Brien suffers from here on out.
Shit. Is it because of this disease, his brand, or
Nope.
just in brand? They just like to masochize him.
I
Did I
think
just make a word up?
You sure did. He's certainly, it's true, because masochism by definition is to yourself. Yeah. So you can't really masochize anyone other than yourself.
Although, Keith, you playing those songs is you were trying to masochize some ladies.
Yes, well, not surprisingly, not super successful, so I had to masochize myself. So, anyway, in Act 4, Sisko and Dax arrive on the alien ship. They want to see where the accident took place. Dax goes to look at O'Brien and Bashir's runabout. We head back to the surface, and they get the radio working, and are able to send out a distress signal. Which is kind of risky, because if they're like, if any of the elves find us, they're gonna kill us. So we're just hoping this gets intercepted by.
And the elves are looking for him anyway, so.
Well, that's true, but this is like, here's where we are.
I thought it was cool that they said I thought it was cool that O'Brien, they can't get the thing working, so he's like, see if you can switch to an RF signal. Now, RF is generally what we use now, radio frequency, but for them, since they have high quality tech, RF is like
antiquated.
Yeah, it's us being like, yo, Keith, pull out that cassette. That's all we got. Get the 4-track out.
Hey, the cassettes, they still work. A lot of your compact discs and your DVDs will die, especially, if you're watching, just like pro tip, all of your CDRs, get those off of those CDRs because those CDs are not designed to last for
Remember
more
when the
than
tape
10
would
years.
crawl out and you'd get a pencil, the end of a pencil, and you just like rewind it back in?
You can fix a tape. Yeah. Like, it'll degrade slowly, but those CDRs, it is a 1 or a 0. It'll work or it won't. All right, so O'Brien thinks he's going to die before they get rescued. He says that Bashir is wrong about marriage, that marriage is a great adventure too, which it is.
I thought the whole monologue here was really great. It was really touching to me.
Yeah. And I wrote down, this is Alexander Siddig's best performance so far. Yes.
I thought Colin was great too.
He's always great.
Yeah, fair.
He's always great. But that was a great little couplet that they had there.
Which would not have been in the episode. That whole theme would be missed if this was Dax.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering how late in the game they made that adjustment. Clearly they had time. This is very well written.
Yeah.
Very cohesive.
It really does change the themes of all the episode, let alone just the episode. On the ship, Sisko discusses the security tapes with the Buckethead elf lady. He asks the Chodehead,
who is not a great actress. I don't mean the performance. I mean, she's not.
Right, the character's
not a good actress.
No. He asks if they might have faked it. She says peace can only survive if they trust each other. Sisko then beams onto the Ganges runabout, and Dax finds that 5 seconds of data has been erased. they piece together quickly that they must have survived after all. On the surface, O'Brien is now really suffering. He asks if Bashir has talked to the ballerina since they broke up. Bashir says nah. Then the Buckethead elf shows up. She's been working with the Chode heads the whole time. It turns out they weren't trying to start the war again, like they first thought, but they wanted to kill everyone who could recreate the weapons, and that included Bashir and O'Brien, which honestly makes sense.
Yeah, there's some sense to it, but also, like, Keith, have you read Moby Dick?
I mean, when I was like 13.
Yeah, but you read it, right?
Call me Ishmael, baby.
Yeah, so if you popped up your laptop right now, how much do you think you could recreate a Moby Dick?
Oh, I could get like a Moby paragraph or two?
Yeah, see, so I imagine that the schematics of a high-tech nuclear / world-ending weapon, biological weapon, is probably pretty dense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, just having seen it doesn't mean you could recreate it.
No.
But I guess if you're like, you know what, that if you're like a gangster and you're trying to eliminate anybody who was near, like, saw the crime, maybe you don't even want people who just saw the crime. Anybody who was near the crime, you gotta wipe them out.
Well, I think it's like understanding the basic principles, because in order for Bashir in particular to find a way to kill it, he had to really understand how it worked. So it's sort of like, if I understand how a nuke works in basic terms,
right,
that would be a really good place to start if I wanted to recreate it, as opposed to like, oh, chamber this goes to chamber Y, and then you put in the nucleus, and blah, 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 blah. So if you didn't know that to start with, it would be harder. So I get it. And
okay.
They both like spent weeks.
I love that plan one
it.
was, I mean, I guess they're on their backs are against the wall right now. So plan one was, fake the death and make it seem like it was a heroic accident. Okay, cool. Plan B, even though Sisko's on to them clearly, is let's just blast them.
Well, they don't know that Sisko is on to them yet.
She's got to know. He was
I mean, it might be suspicious.
Yeah.
But but at some point, like, as we find out, right? Even if Sisko knows, even if they do blast him, Federation's not gonna go to war over it.
Yeah, I mean, at this level of decision making and the ramifications, the consequences, and the decision they've made to like wipe nuclear. If you could, I mean, that's the question we'll get to, right? It's I forget the name of the experiment where it's like you have a person decide whether they're going to divert the train.
The trolley.
Yeah,
the trolley.
It's kind of that, right? Can peace between two warring factions for potentially all time versus the lives of 5 people. I'm not weighing in on this. I'm just saying that's kind of the dilemma presented here.
Impossible decision that you're in here, yeah.
And I think, once again, good writing, we'll talk about this later, in that we're not making these just like sniveling, festering evil villains. They are, in their minds, justified and altruistic.
Yeah, they're choosing the lesser of two evils. So in Act 5, there is a very, very long hesitation before they execute Bashir and O'Brien. O'Brien wants to die in his feet, and they did a really good job of making Colm look sick. Just before they get executed, after everybody's staring at each other for about 5 minutes.
He does look straight terrible.
It does not look good.
He looks like melting Odo.
It does look like melting Odo. Like, I can't believe how long... If their plan is just, like, to wipe him out, they just sort of stare at each other for
no Emmys for makeup, but just hair.
No, just hair.
Okay.
But I guess perhaps their hesitation here is proof that these are not naturally killers.
Mm-hmm. And I agree, 100%. I think I don't think... it's funny, we're about to talk about it, but there's... I don't know that there's many wormholes I can even come up with. It's a pretty airtight episode.
No, it's pretty tight. Pretty tight. But they're rescued. They're beamed out by Dax and Sisko. The ships then head out towards the runabout. Their communications and sensors are blocked, and they begin a ship chase. They demand, of course, the Bucketheads demand that they turn over Bashir and O'Brien, or they will destroy the runabout. Sisko turns around and tries to fight them. But of course, they are hopelessly outgunned. And they eventually blow up the runabout and destroy it, and the ship heads back to grab the other runabout. But of course, they did a bait and switch and piloted it by remote.
They look like Who's, Keith. She looks like Cindy Lou Who.
Who?
Patreon.com/KNM for this comedic masterpiece.
So back on the station, O'Brien is recovering in the infirmary. Bashir can't help but being annoying. He has to be annoying, but he talks about their burgeoning friendship. And we finish with a tag, with O'Brien, of course, asking for coffee late in the afternoon. So he was rescued by something was wrong. So that's not even a sentence. Whew, I need a sandwich. And now it's time for Mike and Deglio's Star Trek Vocabulary Quiz. Okay, Mike. Help explain what is an Udaberry crepe.
That's a crepe with Udaberry in it, Keith.
All right, short and sweet. I hope those...
Udaberry? Udaberry.
As sweet as an Uda berry. All right, and next up, Mike, what is an RF oscillator?
Well, Keith, when your communications are down and the power source is a little bit too weak, you got to go back to the old technology. You got to pull out that cassette tape, that Walkman, and shoot out a radio frequency that could potentially be reach to get you beamed out before they shoot you.
And don't forget, you got to oscillate it.
Well, you got to oscillate it, obviously.
I mean, otherwise, it's not going to get through. All right, Mike, what do you say? We come along home.
Yeah, we absolutely should do that, Keith.
Yeah.
Once I hit the button, it's going to be loud.
Yeah, you think we should? Yeah. Okay. Here we are back at Quarks. Everyone, tip one out to our fallen comrades who have returned to us. Very exciting.
Now, a good tag would have been also having Quark come and ask for them to pay for those drinks, because it turns out they weren't dead.
100%. 100%. All right. So, Mike, were there any wormholes in the plot?
You know, I didn't clock any. Usually I take a couple notes, and I didn't really clock any. I mean, my biggest, as I started to kind of talk about when we were going through it, the bad guy cover-up plan gets a little fuzzy after it initially gets blown up. But, as you said, the stakes were high, and they were scrambling at that point, and clearly they knew that at the end of the day, they were willing to kill a Starfleet commander and or whomever in order to do this, which actually brings up really interesting questions to me. I'm sure that I doubt we deal with these, but it's interesting because is that a war? He said you're committing an act of war, but in their opinion, it's not a war crime. They're protecting the ultimate peace. So, like, how does justice work, right? When you have incidents like this, who is the ultimate command? Who is the ultimate? Who's like the Hague of the galaxy?
I mean, Starfleet is the one who usually is arbitrating a lot of this stuff, but it is very much like diplomacy between countries. There is, I mean, like, right now, look at the war in Ukraine, right? Yes, we have the UN, yes, we have NATO, but they're not really the boss of anything.
Right.
They're just saying we have banded together to implement consequences for what you're doing, as opposed to, there is no boss. It's just the boss is whoever has the biggest gun, and you hope that whoever has the biggest gun is a good guy. Yeah.
I don't really have many wormholes, to be honest. Nothing really jumped out at me that is bothersome. It's pretty airtight, as I said.
Yeah, my initial one was what I said there, was I didn't understand why they were sort of not great at the killing process, the hunting down process, why they fell for the ship thing a little easy. But the answer to that is these are not warriors. These are scientists. These are, ambassadors and administrators. So they're just not used to it. It's not what they do, and their motives are not warlike. They're dire, but these are not killers, but they are killing.
Yes. I guess you do raise one question though, and I guess the stakes are questionable because, the service that you're. Let me start from the back. Let me go backwards to front. They sacrificed, you would assume, the greatest scientific minds of their species, because you have to have your top people working on this, obviously. So that's a huge sacrifice, because it's not just biological weapons that these people work on, right? So you're probably setting back the advancement of your technology and decades, if not more so, because you've killed off the top minds.
Well, yes, but you realize how large a population you have, right? Like, let's say it's us. Let's say we kill off the top 15 scientists in the world. Well, there's a heck of a lot of them out there, and a heck of a lot of great ones. So, you're losing those 15, but that's only a half of 1% of the high-level scientists on our planet.
All right, well, then the last thing I'll say on it, if we don't have anything else, is that the least you could have done in that case, we're giving them a lot of credit. The least you could have done is to actually have set up that vaporization thing.
Do it for real.
You had to have your two goons come on and blast them away. That was kind of shitty.
Yeah, and it's sloppy.
Yeah,
it's sloppy to do it that way.
If you're gonna perpetrate one of the biggest cover-ups in your planet's history, do
blow
better.
The ship up.
Yeah, do better.
There's plenty of things you could have done, which is it is a wormhole. It is a plot convenience because they need to be sloppy in order to even have a story here. But I think it's a little bit rescued by the fact that these people are not professionals.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're amateurs. All right, so best moment.
There's so many good moments here. I think I'm going to pick the moment between Sisko and Keiko because they both took the harder choice as performers and sold it in close-up, which is even harder to do. And if you go back, there was a screenshot I had of just Keiko's face, and it's all there. Everything she feels and thinks is behind her eyes, and you see it. It's on the screen, and Ben too. And it's a great bit of acting without doing too much, which is more difficult, which is hard to explain, but it's just the way it is.
It is indeed,
and that's not to take anything away from great scenes with Bashir and O'Brien.
Well, and I'll help you out there because I'll choose. It's not one specific moment, but the ongoing conversation between Bashir and O'Brien on the planet when they're talking about relationships and marriage and obligation and the danger you put yourself in, and I think that was I thought it was really well written. I thought the ideas were well articulated. There was no one side that won. It was just an exploration of a lot of that stuff, and it was really excellent performances. I mean, Colomini is an incredibly seasoned, wonderful, talented actor. But I think we also got a chance to see Alex Siddig grow here as an actor. I mean, he's so young, good Lord. And to be bouncing off somebody like Colum, I think it really raised everybody's game, and I think it raised his game. And I think it elevated both him as an actor, it elevated the character, it gave us a color of Bashir that we haven't really seen yet, like a depth and some growth there, that we see the adult side of Bashir start to speak up from the sort of puppy dog version we've seen thus far, and it's deepened the whole thing. It also is gigantic for their relationship moving forward. We've had a couple this season, we start to see them connecting, right? And there's a lot of conflict and contempt, but we're starting to see the cracks break in that contempt, and that is going to be interesting to watch it develop. And this is also what elevates this beyond sort of like the episodic like thing of the week, we're starting to see character growth. We're starting to see relationship growth in a way that is not always as followed through on Trek at this point. And, you know, I've said this about Deep Space Nine, but Deep Space Nine has the most character growth and relationship growth of any Trek, I think. And we're starting to see that here. So I like that. Mike, let's handle some stem bolts.
Yeah, I'll start with an idea before I forget this point. You know, in media, you often see marriage, specifically, in 3 buckets. Good marriage, bad marriage, marriage falling apart. Those are the sort of 3 you generally get. And what you don't often see represented, especially in 1994, 1995, the 90s before, is a good marriage. People love each other and they're right to be together, that have challenges and are just existing in that challenge. Because every year that I'm married, I kind of come to realize that it's a tough thing, man, even if you're in a good one. And that's because of big things. It's because of mundane things. And there's something wonderful and beautiful about that is very hard to explain and just can only be experienced personally. And I don't think they try to prophesize here, and I don't think they try to overdo it. I think it's clear that that O'Brien tries to impart a little of that wisdom into Bashir, but he doesn't overdo it, and it's not heavy-handed. And I just think it's just really a great nugget that they were able to weave into the plot. I also think it's interesting that the big bads are really under the belief that they're doing good, but aren't blinded to the fact that they're also murdering people, right? It's a conscious choice they're making to do this. And I think it's awesome that they doubled down, because they could have gone too far to the gray area where like they don't reckon that they're so invested in what they have to do that they don't see the evil in what they're doing. No, they get it. She's deciding we're gonna kill Starfleet Commander and basically anybody we have to. And the fact that they're doing it together with the species that they were just at war with, really complex idea, really interesting. I agreed with you. I thought that maybe it would have been interesting to see Keiko have more agency in the rescue, but I get it. I'm not going to fault it for it. I think they didn't undercut her in any way. I think she still had it, and they all believed her, and they took immediate action. And we're going to see
more of that moving forward.
Oh, good. I also loved we got more Ben being. I love when they give him tasks where he has to rise above his personal stake in a situation and be the commander. And they do that. They double down on that in this episode, and I think it's so good. I think this is one of Avery Brooks' best performances thus far, I think. Very mature, and you didn't see one person shed a tear this episode, not one.
No.
But yet the stakes were there. You could argue that maybe you wanted to see a little more, but as you said, not only is there a grief process and a shock process, but also these are people who are at work and have a lot of lives under their charge and have to continue.
They're making life and death decisions and risks and jeopardy every day.
And they were able to insert a little levity with Quark. I mean, I guess the stakes were never that high for us because we knew they were alive, so it was easier for them to thread that needle. They weren't trying to keep us all under the belief that they were actually dead, so it was a little easier of a task. I really just thought it was great, and I we don't have to. It doesn't have to be this huge, oh my God, I have to just sit here and think for 25 minutes after the episode to really feel it. No, I got what it was saying, and I thought it was cool, and I thought it was really well written, I thought it was well performed. I really enjoyed it. Great ride, great pacing, and great resolution. I thought the resolution was really cool. They established that the communication was, the near field communication was down.
Right.
They do a switchy switch. I mean, they over exposition it a little bit with the Chode guy being like, oh, perhaps he remote controlled. Like they explained what just happened to them. Yeah, we got it. But whatever. Keith, great episode. What are my high rankings for this season so far?
This season, your 2 highest rankings have been Necessary Evil at 91.5 and Rules of Acquisition at 90.
This is right up there with me. I got to say, I'm going to go 90.65 self-sealing stem bolts. This is one of my fave eps. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time, and I'm finding that for me, I can really like something because I love the ideas, and sometimes I really love the ride, and I feel like this was a nice little mix of both.
Yeah. I mean, I like this episode. I don't think I quite like it as much as you do. Not for any particular reason other than I know that the meter goes higher. Right? Like this.
I want the meter. I think it resets season to season for me.
Yeah. Well, it just in terms of like the, the quality of episode for a season thus far, this is a very good episode. Moving forward, this will be like, which is really exciting, right? That there's a lot more coming. So I did like this episode. I think it has some really important stuff in there. It gets 84 self-sealing stem bolts for me. So next week, speaking of episodes that I really enjoy, we are going to be watching Whispers. So that will be coming up next week. Should be super, super fun. Folks, if you have enjoyed this, give us a like, give us a subscribe. And to those of you listening to this, of which I know there are a good amount of folks who just listen to the podcast version, you can do us a giant favor by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast service you are listening to. That really helps people find us. We haven't really emphasized it, but you could really, really help us out by doing that. All right, so thanks to our patrons. We will see you back here next week with Whispers. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.